Hello.
Howdy,
Hey.
folks. How are you today? We're at McDonald's and we all just got a drink. And I ordered a coffee with 2 creams and 2 sugars. And I can't, actually, I could probably pick it up and show you. And I got a coffee that's obviously got no cream in it. And Bubby's got no cream in his either. Now, a lot of people, you hear them rant and bitch and complain that their order wasn't correct at McDonald's. I find that kind of funny. Yeah, I won't complain. I'll drink the coffee as it is. I remember when I was a kid, I heard someone say, if you want it done right, you got to do it yourself. You know, I had no intentions of making my own coffee this morning. I knew that I was going to go and get it at McDonald's. I am still grateful that it is a hot, fresh cup of coffee. That it doesn't have creamer in it, that's just kind of like a surprise. Like, you know, it's not a bad thing. It's kind of a good thing. You know, it's a surprise. You know, it's good. It's cool, right?
Yeah.
You know, there's no point in bitching or complaining about it. Then it's just gonna bring everybody's day down, right? And it's like, anyhow, the video today, we wanted to make a video. I'm trying to get this set up so it doesn't fall down. I want to make a video on food, water, and shelter. The 3 basics for life. In order to support or sustain life, you have to have food, you have to have clean, fresh drinking water, and you have to have shelter. You have to have a place to live, right?
Yeah.
Today
way to get
it's-
affected by the weather.
Right. Today's a good example of that. It's rainy and cold and nasty out, so we need shelter. We're sitting in the car, right? So on food, let's talk about food. 200 years ago, yep. Well, our country is over 200 years old, so this is still, this is American history. This is 200 years ago, right? Our country was founded in 1776. So you got 1776, 1876, 1976. That would have been 200 years. So we're well over 200 years, right?
You were 1.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I was 1 when the country turned 200 years old, right? So this is just 200 years ago. This is American history even. 90% of the population were farmers, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that means 9 out of every 10 people farmed.
Yep.
And they did that for food, right?
Yeah.
Because one of the 3 that you need for life is food, right? There weren't grocery stores. There wasn't mass farming being done. The ability to mass farm wasn't even in existence yet, right? It was a guy with a mule and a plow and plowed the ground and planted and then and he hunted for meat and raised chickens for eggs and maybe a dairy cow for milk, you know, and but yeah, 90% of the population were farmers, right? That's what they had to do. Fast forward 200 years to today, guess how many people are farmers?
2%.
I already told you, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's like 2% out of
2% of the population are farmers. That's
6.
like for every 10 people, only 2 of them farm, right?
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that like a 6% difference?
Or no, that would be 20%. So it's for every 100 people, 2 people farm, right?
Wowzers.
So there's a huge decline in farmers, right? People aren't farming, and that's great. They don't have to.
Yeah.
Instead of having 90% of the population have to spend their day farming, only 2% of the population farms, and they produce enough food
For everyone.
to feed everybody, right? That's great. That's amazing. That's wonderful. Be sure you don't spill your coffee.
I know.
We said a little bit ago, farmers used a mule and a plow, you know, to plow the ground. It was very labor intensive for the 90% that were farming. Today, it's farming, a lot of it is done with autonomously driven tractors. That means there's not a person even actually in the tractor. It's like an RC car, remote control car, and there's not a person that's controlling the controls. They just program it, and then it takes off on the programmed path, And it not only plows, but it fertilizes, it plants, it harvests. There's very, very little bit of work that's done with actual people in farming anymore. It's all done with autonomously driven equipment. It's pre-programmed, and I mean, you can program your phone for, you know,
Anything.
days, weeks, years in advance. You know, why can't? I'm sure they do the same thing with tractors. You know, maybe they program them around the seasons. You know,
Yeah.
so there's very, very little work is even done by the people anymore, right?
Yeah.
And then you got water, right? You need, that was another one of the that we talked about food. Is there anything you guys wanted to add to food? You just like eating food, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. I know you do.
Yeah.
Water. I mean, we all have to have clean, fresh drinking water for to drink and for, you know, sanitation, for sanitary reasons. You know, you got to take a
Yeah.
bath or a shower, you know, and you want the toilet to work when you hit the lever on that, right? And of course, we need it to drink, right? Our bodies are made up of 70% water, so that's going to be quite a bit of water, right? That's when you start talking about clean, fresh drinking water, that's where I start getting kind of concerned with all the fracking and stuff like that. I mean, that's got a text message. Oh shit! What did I just do?
I think you paused it.
Uh-oh. It just got really dark.
Yep.
Are you sure you just didn't accidentally adjust
I just said I don't know what I did.
Okay,
there you
there
go.
we go.
Drinking water, clean, fresh drinking water, right?
Yep. You were
There's a
saying
lot of fracking going on, and if you look at, and fracking is where they take and they mix chemicals with clean, fresh water, shoot it down underground, and bust up rock and stuff with it, and then extract natural gas from the ground so that we can use it for heating our homes and selling it to make money and stuff like that, right? My main concern, I guess, would be the quality of the drinking water. Not only after they get done with the water that they use being contaminated with the chemicals that they obviously put into it and admit to putting into it, and then the disposal of that water, but the water that they force underground, they can't get it all back out, right?
No.
So is that some of that water being put into the underground aquifers? And if you look at where they're doing it right now in our region, that's where the main source of fresh water in the U.S. is in the upper Northeast. You've got all the Great Lakes, you've got major rivers, major waterways. You know, it's a huge amount of fresh water, and there's underground aquifers as well. And it's like they're messing with that, and I don't like that, right? You got to have that clean, fresh water. And if you screw that water up, I mean, that affects all of us, right?
Including the crops and the animals and
Right.
different stuff like that.
Absolutely. Yep. But if you look back, we went back 200 years with the farming. Now, if you go back 200 years with water, the water was also being polluted and contaminated back then as well. Back during the 1849 gold rush, they would take mercury, which everybody knows is a neurotoxin. It's horrible, bad stuff to put in your body. I mean, it's got uses, but not for
Yeah.
human consumption, right?
Not for us.
And what they would do with mercury is they would take great big globs of it and they would dump it in the rivers in gold sticks to mercury. It's like a magnet to mercury.
So it's basically like gold mining.
That's exactly what it was. They would take the mercury, dump it in the rivers, and as it went downstream, it would collect all the gold up out of the streams, and then all they had to do was look for that great big glob of mercury with all the gold in it. They'd pick the whole thing up and then separate the gold from the mercury, and of course they would sell the gold. They made money that way. But a lot of the mercury got left in the
Yeah, that would
rivers.
pollute the river.
Exactly, it's polluting the river, you know. You don't want to be upstream from a guy who's dumping all kinds of mercury in the river, right? Because that's all going to come down to you and poison you and your herd and your family and
It'll pollute us.
yeah. So I mean, 200 years ago they were polluting it as well, but I don't know which is worse, the mercury being dumped in the river or the fracking. You know, They're both bad. The point is, we need to take care of our water. That's like something we have to have, right?
Mhm.
And then, water also too is a very non-labor intensive.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't require a whole lot of people power. You know, back 200 years ago, if you dug a hand-dug well, you know, it was you and a couple of neighbors, you know, or a couple of buddies, and you dig a hole and you hit water, right?
Yeah.
You know, it didn't take you very long at all. I mean, it'd take you a few days, but maybe a month, depending on what kind of ground you're in. Pay attention to your coffee. And today, they have rotary wells that drill much, much deeper,
Mhm.
and it's much quicker. You know, a day's time, and you got a 200-foot well. You know,
Yeah.
so it's changed a lot there too. And then shelter. We're getting kind of long on this video. Shelter. I mean, you've all seen the hand-built log cabins. You know, that 200 years ago they were.
Yeah, like the mud brick stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, you learned about them in school.
Yeah.
You know, they were not nothing fancy. They're not. The walls weren't insulated. The floors a lot of times were
No.
dirt. Obviously, no electricity in them, no water, nothing like that.
Because they were basically just using what nature provided, like sticks, mud.
Right.
So it took maybe a few days to build
So-
a whole brick house.
Well, no, it took more than a few days. It
Oh,
took a
yeah.
long time because you had to cut down all the trees, and then you had to cut the ends off and square them, and then stack them up. And they did. It's called chinking. They
Yeah.
would take and pack moss and mud in between the cracks of the logs. I mean, it took a long time, especially if you're only doing it with, you know,
Yeah.
you and your family. You know, it took you a very, very long time
No.
to build a very primitive style house.
Yeah. But today they
and then-
have little machines that accurately build the houses.
Right. You fast forward 200 years to today, and they have not autonomous, but they're automatic. There are still people
Yeah.
involved in the process, but far fewer, and it's much less labor intensive. You have the automatic bricklaying machines, which, like that hotel over there, they could lay the walls to that, and there's very
Yeah.
few people even there. I mean, you might have a person that would load a pallet of bricks into the machine and then program it, you know, and then the machine would take off and run. And the biggest part would be like setting it up, you know, because each house is going to be a little bit different, or each
Yeah.
building is going to be different, so they have to set the machine up for different parameters to lay the walls different or whatever, you know. But yeah, there's much less. You get much more for your labor today, in terms of the quality of a house, than you did 200 years ago, right? So I guess all in all, you know, with food, water, and shelter, it's gotten much, much easier, should have gotten much, much easier to obtain. But somehow the benefits of all the technology used to increase the benefits of it is going to the top,
Yeah.
right? Like, if those farmers, the 200, or if the 90% of farmers sold all their food in comparison to the 2%, look at how much more money the 2% would be making versus the 90%, right?
Yeah.
Because the 90%.
They're still making the same amount of food, but it's being split by 90% of the population, which is just going to feed you. You're going to be poor, versus the 1 or the 2% that's profiting from selling it to the 90% now.
Yeah.
That's
Right, they
less
still
have
gotta
to
eat.
split.
Yeah.
Right.
It's all very crazy.
All right, let's wrap this one up. Peace.
Love.
Happiness.
Make sure to smash the subscribe button, hit the like button. You know, I got a challenge. You should try to hit the like button with either your elbow or your pinky, okay? And then,
I think you gotta do it with your elbow.
yeah. Comment which one you do, your elbow or your pinky. I just mixed that up.
Thank you. Peace.
Love.
Happiness.
Mm.